This happened last summer. I was 32 and had just moved to a small town for a new job. I thought it would be a nice change from city life. I was a graphic designer, and quiet nights at home were my preference. I set up my workspace in a little two-story house hidden behind high hedges. It was peaceful, and I thought it would be a good place to focus on my art. Looking back, I didn't know what I was getting into. One night, while working late, I noticed a flickering light in the backyard. At first, I thought my tired eyes were playing tricks on me. I shook my head and tried to refocus on my screen. But something pulled me outside. Once I stepped into my yard, the light vanished, and a chill swept over me. It felt wrong. Over the next few days, strange things kept happening. I was on my couch, sketching, when I saw a quick shadow move past the window. My heart raced. I turned to look, but there was nothing outside, just trees and total silence. I wanted to believe it was my imagination. Then, one morning, I opened my front door. Something was on the mat. A broken toy car stared back at me. I didn't know who it belonged to. I glanced around but saw no one. My stomach nodded. Was this a prank? A couple of days later, I found a crude drawing on my doorstep. It looked like something from my childhood nightmares. I felt a wave of dread wash over me. The weekend that followed, I noticed a cold draft in the house. It felt too chilly for summer. I hugged myself and thought about closing the windows. As I passed through the living room, the air felt heavy. I stopped and looked around. Just silence. My heart pounded. As the weeks slipped away, my sense of unease grew. I was convinced something was watching me. I debated telling someone, but who would believe me? I kept it all in and tried to focus on my designs. Then one night, as I sat in front of my computer, I heard a soft whisper. Someone was calling my name. I turned around slowly. There was nothing there. My heart raced even faster. The air around me turned colder. I didn't know what to do. The next night, I heard a knock on my front door. I hesitated. I was home alone. When I opened the door, there was nothing but darkness. I scanned the surroundings but saw no one. My breath caught in my throat. Moments later, I heard footsteps on my porch. I peeked through the window, and there stood a figure, just a silhouette against the dim outside light. I couldn't see their face. I was trembling, and I thought about calling someone. But my phone was inside. Suddenly, the figure turned and ran away into the dark. I felt a cold sweat roll down my back. I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching me through the glass. I shut the curtains. That summer was a blur of strange occurrences. I wished I could forget, but the memories came flooding back. I still don't know what was real or if there was something in that house. I just remember feeling like I was never truly alone. The next day, I decided I needed answers. I could no longer brush off the strange happenings. I visited the local library, hoping to find someone who knew about the history of my house or the neighborhood. The librarian, an elderly woman with thick glasses, raised an eyebrow when I mentioned my address. "Ah, that old place," she said slowly, as if weighing her words. "You may want to look into its past." Her tone sent a chill down my spine. She handed me a faded newspaper article. It talked about an accident that had occurred years ago, involving a child. The child had gone missing, and though they searched for weeks, no trace was ever found. My heart sank. Was that why I kept finding toys on my doorstep? It didn't seem like a coincidence anymore. Feeling unsettled, I left the library and walked back home under a heavy cloud of thoughts. I tried to convince myself that I was just letting my imagination get the best of me. Still, as I approached my front door, a sense of dread washed over me. What if there was more to this? What if something was looking for that child? Later that evening, as the sunlight dimmed into a dusky hue, I made dinner. The hum of the stove filled the silence, and for a moment, I felt a bit of normalcy. But as night closed in, the anxiety crept back. The shadows in the corners of the room felt thicker, like they were reaching for me. After eating, I decided to go for a walk. The streets were blissfully quiet, draped in an eerie calm. I needed to clear my mind. As I wandered through the neighborhood, I noticed a group of kids playing across the street. They were laughing and shouting, their voices piercing the stillness. I felt a pang of nostalgia, remembering my own childhood innocence before unsettling thoughts returned. "Have you seen her?" one of the kids asked, a small girl with pigtails. "Who?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. "Her. The girl who used to live in your house." The girl pointed toward my home. A knot twisted in my stomach. "What do you mean?" "She disappeared a long time ago," another kid chimed in. "We heard stories about her ghost coming back." I felt my heart race. "What kind of stories?" The kids exchanged glances. "If you hear her calling your name, it means she wants to play. But you shouldn't answer." I chuckled nervously, dismissing the idea. But deep inside I felt a chill. They raced off, and I remained standing there, alone with my thoughts. Had the things I experienced been signs that she was reaching out? When I returned home, I felt the weight of the evening pressing down on me. I locked the door behind me and sank onto the couch. But before I could breathe a sigh of relief, my phone vibrated. It was a text from an unknown number. "Help me." I froze. My eyes darted around the dimly lit room. I didn't feel alone anymore. The whispers returned, clearer now, calling my name. I needed to understand what was happening before it was too late. Just as I stood up, everything went dark. I blinked, struggling to comprehend the darkness around me. My heart raced as I fumbled for my phone, its screen illuminating the shadows with a soft glow. The message still lingered in my mind. "Help me." Who was it? Why did they reach out to me? I switched on the flashlight and heard a faint rustle from the corner of the living room. My breath hitched. I forced myself to move, inching toward the sound. The light flickered, casting erratic shapes on the wall. I tried to steady my shaking hand. It felt like the air was thick around me, heavy with fear. Suddenly, I saw a toy lying on the floor. A small, worn-out teddy bear. My stomach dropped. I remembered seeing it outside my door a few days ago. Had it been there all along? As I picked it up, a cold draft swept through the room, sending shivers down my spine. I wanted to turn on all the lights, to dispel the shadows lurking in the corners, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. I heard the whisper again, clear as day this time. "Play with me." The air thickened as I stood frozen in place. I didn't know if I should respond. The girl from earlier had warned me not to. My mind raced. Could it be her? The girl who had gone missing? Instinct kicked in, and I dashed to the front door, hoping to escape the oppressive silence. But as I reached for the handle, I froze again. The door was locked. I was trapped. My pulse quickened. No, no, no! I turned back to the living room, and that's when I saw it, a figure, small and blurred, standing in the hallway. My heart stopped. The figure seemed to tilt its head, as if examining me. I blinked, hoping my mind was playing tricks, but it didn't vanish. "Help me," the voice echoed again, softer now, almost pleading. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out. My voice wavered, colliding with the stillness. A giggle erupted from the figure, innocent but chilling. "Let us play." With that, it darted to the side, disappearing into the shadows. In a flash, every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. Instead, I took a cautious step forward, drawn by a mix of fear and curiosity. The hallway felt unnaturally cold as I approached, the air thick with dread. I reached the end of the hall, and the darkness seemed to pulse. I could hardly see anything, just the flicker of my phone's light dancing against the walls. That's when I noticed something glistening on the floor, a small locket. Bending down, I picked it up. It felt warm in my hand, though everything else was cold. When I opened it, my breath caught. Inside was a picture of a little girl, the same girl I'd seen outside my house, her smile bright and inviting. Suddenly, the whispers surrounded me. "Play with me. Please play with me." I could see her now, clearly as day, standing at the edge of the light. The weight of unfinished business pressed against my chest, like a stone sinking into my heart. Who was she really? Just then, I felt pressure on my shoulder, cold fingers gripping tightly. I looked around to find no one there, but I heard laughter echoing around me. Fear surged. I needed answers. I needed to find out what happened to her. But as I turned back to the hallway, the darkness closed in on me again, and I felt myself spiral downward into the unknown. I gasped as I stumbled back into the living room, trying to shake off the lingering cold that had wrapped around me. My mind raced with thoughts of the little girl and the chilling whispers. I needed to fight the fear gripping me, to figure out what was happening. It felt impossible to just stand still. Inaction only fueled the dread. I grabbed the teddy bear from my hand and tossed it aside. Then, I turned to the hallway again, the shadows beckoning me. I wasn't ready to enter that pitch-black world but felt an undeniable pull. Something deep inside made me believe I needed to go closer, to confront whatever was hiding there. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, the flashlight beam cutting through the dark. Just as I reached the open space at the end of the hallway, the air shifted. I hoped for light, for clarity, but the darkness enveloped me like a thick fog. It felt suffocating. Then, from behind, I heard the creak of a floorboard. It was soft but unmistakable. Someone else was here. My heart raced again. I was not alone in this house. The laughter echoed again in reply, higher and more playful. "Who's there?" I shouted, more bravely than I felt. No answer came. I resisted the urge to run. My eyes narrowed, searching through the dimness. There had to be something, someone, indicating what was going on. I noticed an old toy chest pushed against the wall, partially hidden in the shadows. I didn't remember seeing it before. It felt suddenly important. I crossed the threshold to the room, hand gripping the flashlight like a weapon. As I approached the chest, its lid was slightly ajar. It seemed to beckon me, as if holding secrets within. Without thinking, I pulled it open, and the old hinges screeched, breaking the silence. Inside, I found an assortment of faded toys, each one covered in a fine layer of dust. They looked like they hadn't been touched in years. Among them, an old music box caught my eye. It was ornate, with intricate carvings of dancing figures on the sides. I wiped off the dust and opened it. The familiar melody played softly, filling the room with an eerie nostalgia. It took me back to long-gone summers filled with innocence, music, and laughter. Then I heard it, a low giggle trailing the music, soft, but close. My skin prickled. I felt watched, breathing unevenly as I scanned my surroundings. "Is the girl here? Are you here?" I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. The laughter shifted to a giggle, teasing yet mischievous, like she was right behind me. "You have to find me." Panic washed over me as I whipped around again, the beam of my flashlight probing the dark corners. I saw her, a small figure darting just out of sight, always just beyond the edge of light. My breath quickened, and I chased after her instinctively, drawn into the murky depths of the hallway. Then, the lights flickered, a final warning signal, and everything went dark. I stood frozen in total darkness, my heart pounding like a drum. The music box's melody faded, replaced by the profound silence that felt heavy around me. I instinctively raised my flashlight, but the beam was weak, barely illuminating my small bubble of fear. "Where are you?" I whispered, straining to use my ears more than my eyes. The familiar giggle teased me again, echoing off the walls, sounding nearer now. I steadied myself and took a small step forward, my foot grazing something cold and hard on the floor. A toy? I knelt down and felt around. My fingers brushed against something fuzzy. It was the teddy bear I'd tossed earlier. It had somehow ended up in the hallway. "Are you serious?" I muttered to myself, both irritated and frightened. I picked it up once more, clutching it tightly. It felt ridiculous, yet I needed something to ground me. The whispers returned, overlapping each other, swirling in the dark. "Find me," echoed all around me. How could a voice sound so playful yet hold a hint of desperation? My instincts screamed to run, but curiosity nagged at me like an itch that couldn't be scratched. I ventured further into the unknown, relying on instinct and sound rather than sight. The darkness felt thicker now, pressing against me like a heavy blanket. I remembered the toy chest. Maybe there were more clues, maybe there was something else that could explain who the girl was. Suddenly, the flashlight flickered again, trembling on the edge of failure. I took a deep breath and pressed harder on the button, desperate for it to stay lit. The beam steadied momentarily, casting dancing shadows on the walls. That S when I saw it, the faint outline of a door, slightly ajar, at the end of the hallway. In the dim light, I could see a shimmer of color just beyond. I hesitated. What lay behind that door? Safety? Or something worse? Before I could talk myself out of it, I moved forward. Each step echoed in the silence, the dim light illuminating the doorknob. I reached for it, my fingers trembling, and turned it slowly. The door creaked open, revealing a small, forgotten room. It was filled with toys, piles of dolls, cars, and games scattered everywhere. Most were worn, but the colors still peeked through the dust. What struck me was a large painting on the far wall, a vibrant depiction of a girl with brown hair and pigtails, her smile wide and inviting. I felt a rush of familiarity. Could that be her? I thought. The urge to step inside blazed through me. What if this was a part of the truth I needed? But before I could move, an icy wind whipped through the room, sending a shiver down my spine. The door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, adrenaline coursing through my veins, pounding against my temples. I was trapped. Panic set in as I pounded against the door, calling out for someone, anyone to hear me. But the playful laughter outside had shifted into something darker, echoing through the very walls of the house. I realized the girl wasn't merely lost, she was waiting for me to play a different game. That thought pushed my heart into my throat as I heard her voice again, now sounding closer. You have to join me. The walls felt like they were closing in. I pounded on the door again, my knuckles aching, desperation clawing at my throat. Let me out! I shouted, but the only response was the low giggle again, now resonating through the walls. You have to join me, she whispered, a chilling command laced with playfulness. It felt like a dare. I took a shaky breath and forced myself to focus. I had to think. Inside this room, cluttered with forgotten toys, I was hidden from whatever darkness lay beyond. But was that a safe place or a trap? I turned back to the room. The toy chest caught my eye. It was heavy, worn at the edges, covered in layers of dust. I dragged it toward me, the wood scraping against the floor. I could hear things shifting inside. Was there something important? Something that could help me understand? As I pulled the lid open, the creak echoed loudly in the dim room. I felt trepidation coiling in my stomach. Inside, there were more dolls, some with hair that looked more realistic than any toy should, others with cracked porcelain faces staring up at me like they were alive. I winced, but the urge to dig deeper was undeniable. I sifted through the toys, and that S when I saw it, a small, silver locket nestled in a hand-knit blanket. I picked it up, the cool metal sending a shiver through my fingers. It was engraved with a tiny E on the front. I opened it carefully, revealing a faded photo of a girl. Her smile was achingly familiar. It was the girl from the painting. Who are you? I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. The room grew colder, and the laughter escalated into a cacophony that surrounded me. Then I heard a soft thud behind me. My heart skipped. I spun around, locking eyes with the door. The shadow on the other side shifted. It seemed to pulse, like something was pressing against it. I realized then the door wasn't just closed, it felt like something was trying to get in. Fear ignited my senses. I was trapped, there was nowhere to go. No, please, I murmured, clutching the locket tightly. The light from my flashlight flickered again, the beam dimming as the shadows began to pulsate with life. I backed away toward the corner, panic flooding my system. Find me. The voice sang again, now layered with a sinister echo. I realized then that the laughter wasn't just playful. There was an edge of something dark, something more menacing. In that moment of clarity, I remembered the painting. She wasn't just a girl in the picture. She was a part of this room, part of the story that wrapped around me like a tightening noose. The painting's eyes watched me, and I sensed an urge to stand still, to listen. Then everything went still. The laughter faded into silence, replaced by a soft, almost pleading tone. You have to play with me. The sensation of something cold brushed against my neck, and I felt myself shiver. Without thinking, I glanced back at the locket one more time. I had to know who she was. Just then, a gentle breeze blew past me, and I heard a whisper, barely audible, "Help me." I froze. Was this girl trapped too? Did she need saving, or was I the one in danger? The clock was ticking, and before I could process my next move, the door rattled violently. Someone was trying to break in. My heart raced at the sound of the rattling door, each tremor echoing in the tight space. I turned, feeling every nerve in my body scream for escape. I pressed against the wall, trying to keep out of sight, but the shadows were alive, creeping closer as they danced in the dying light. "Help me," the whisper lingered in the air, taunting me. I felt the weight of the room, of its secrets and stories, pressing against my chest. The urge to bolt was overwhelming, but where could I go? The door was the only exit, and it felt more like a gateway to chaos. I looked down at the locket in my hand, its cool surface a stark contrast to the suffocating heat of the room. I held it tightly, as if it could anchor me. Maybe this was the key to understanding what was happening. The girl in the picture, it had to be her. But who was she? What did she want from me? The thuds grew louder, punctuated by a voice rambling from the other side. "Let me in. I just want to play." The giggle morphed into something more desperate, sending chills down my spine. I couldn't stay here, but I couldn't leave either. Then something shifted in the shadows, and the air around me thickened. A flicker of movement caught my eye, a doll that had fallen from the toy chest. It rolled a few inches, tilting its head as if it were watching me. I had thought the dolls were mere toys, but now they felt like witnesses, or worse, participants in this eerie play. I crept closer to the toy chest, feeling compelled to confront the very thing that had led me into this nightmare. Digging deeper, I pushed past dolls and stuffed animals, each one eliciting a feeling of wrongness. Then I felt the small weight of a paper beneath my fingers. I pulled it out, barely able to see in the dim light. Unfolding it quickly, my breath caught as I read the scrawled handwriting. "Find her before it's too late." "She," waiting. The thump at the door turned into a crash. A shadow exploded through the space, as if the darkness itself had come alive, invading my small sanctuary. I stumbled back in fear, eyes darting for any way out, but all I had was the promise contained in the silver locket. "Join me!" the voice screamed, this time infused with an urgency that reverberated through the room. The door began to splinter. I was running out of time. Just as I prepared myself to act, the locket warmed in my palm. The image inside seemed to shimmer, and I could almost hear the girl's laughter, but now it sounded more like a plea. "Help me find my way home." I didn't know what that meant, but it was clear I had a choice to make. I could face whatever was trying to get in, or I could trust this fading image and search for her. Either way, the clock was ticking. Then, from the corner of my eye, I noticed something on the wall. A crack, a narrow fissure that led deeper into the shadows. I thought maybe, just maybe, that was my way out. But time was up. The door burst open, and out of the shadows, something lunged toward me. I barely had time to react. The figure from the doorway was a distortion of shadows, a mass that twisted and writhed as if it were made of darkness itself. My instinct kicked in, and I bolted toward the crack in the wall. I squeezed through it, not looking back even as the air crackled with the sound of something sinister breaking free behind me. The narrow passage was cold and damp, and I could feel my pulse racing as I scrambled forward. The crack was just wide enough for me to fit, but I had to crouch low, the walls closing in around me. Moving quickly, I willed myself to let the locket guide me, its warmth still pulsing in my hand. As I slid deeper into the darkness, I suddenly felt a surge of dread. The laughter of the girl echoed around me, but now it was intermingled with cries of distress. "Help me! Find me!" Her voice was desperate, pulling at something deep inside of me, but I could only focus on escaping. Then, just ahead, I saw a faint light. It flickered like a candle, and I pushed harder to reach it. Finally, I tumbled out of the crack and into a small, dimly lit room. There were more dolls here, but they were different. These were old, their faces cracked and faded. Each wore a unique expression, as if they had all witnessed something terrible. I stood scanning the room. In one corner, a small table bore a smattering of dust-covered items, a rusty key, a broken hourglass, and a small mirror that reflected the flickering light. My heart sank. I couldn't shake the feeling that these items were tied to the girl in the locket, but I didn't know how. I approached the table, and as I picked up the mirror, I felt a chill wrap around me. In the glass, I caught a glimpse of movement behind me. My breath hitched. A shadow darted across the doorway, and the laughter turned shrill. "Come play." It beckoned, now a haunting call that sent shivers down my spine. I spun around, searching for a way out. The only other door in the room was ajar, revealing a dark passage beyond. It looked even more foreboding than the crack I'd just escaped. With no time to hesitate, I started toward it, my heart pumping louder than the wind outside. I could hear the shadow growing closer, its footsteps echoing in the empty space. I pushed through the door, and just as I did, something cold gripped my ankle. I stumbled, falling to the ground as the shadow surged closer. I clawed at the floor, panicking. That's when I saw it. The glint of silver beneath the dust, a locket similar to the one I held. But this one was broken, and inside I could just make out the same girl, her eyes wide with terror. Before I could make sense of it, the grip around my ankle tightened. I screamed, scrambling away, the laughter growing louder, taking over my senses. I had to get out of there. I had to find the girl. I pushed to my feet and dashed through the doorway, heart pounding, not knowing if I was running towards safety or deeper into the darkness. But instinct told me I was racing against time. Whatever was following me wouldn't be stopped so easily. And I had no idea what it wanted. The darkness swallowed me as I fled through the door, my legs pumping wildly. I could still hear the laughter behind me. It twisted and echoed around the narrow passage, enveloping me with its madness. I didn't dare look back. The only thing that mattered was putting distance between me and that thing. My feet barely made a sound against the cold stone floor as I ran. The passageway felt endless, each corner seemed to drop into more shadows. But soon, I saw another flicker of light ahead. This one was stronger, almost inviting. I hesitated, worry creeping in. What if it was a trap? But I had no choice. I had to find a way out of this nightmare. I rounded the next corner and skidded to a stop. The room I entered was larger, filled with rows of dollhouses. Each one looked pristine, as if on display in a store. Yet there was something unsettling about them. The windows were dark, empty, and I could feel eyes on me. The air was heavy, charged with a presence that wasn't welcoming. "Help me! Find me!" The girl's voice was clear now, more urgent. I felt the locket in my hand grow warm. I was being pulled toward the far end of the room, and with every step, it felt like I was being wedged deeper into a dream I couldn't escape. I reached the end of the room. In the middle stood one dollhouse that was different. It was larger and taller, with intricate designs and a front door that seemed almost like a portal. The moment I laid eyes on it, I was drawn in. I stepped closer, and without thinking, I pushed the small door open. Inside, the rooms were painstakingly detailed. There was a small bedroom, a kitchen, and even a tiny living room. But something was off. In the tiny, flickering light powered by nothing, I saw shadowy figures flitting behind the windows of each room. My heart raced. This was more than just a dollhouse. Every window felt like a glimpse into another world, one that could trap me just like the shadows outside. "What do you want?" I whispered, my fear palpable. "Come play." The laughter erupted again, now filled with malice, making the walls of the dollhouse shudder. It sounded like a dozen voices intertwining, each one more sinister than the last. I turned, ready to run. But the moment I stepped back, something cold grasped my shoulder. I whipped around, my breath hitching. A figure loomed over me, cloaked in shadow, its laughter mixing with the girl's pleas. My instincts kicked in. I bolted from the dollhouse, but the air was heavy, as if the room itself wanted to hold me back. I sprinted to the door, my heart hammering, praying I wouldn't be caught. Just as I reached the exit, the shadow lunged forward, shrieking my name in a distorted voice. I stumbled out, barely making it through the door. My mind raced. I had to find the girl, but what about this thing chasing me? I couldn't let fear dictate my next move. There had to be a way to stop it. As I made my way back into the passage, I felt the locket burn in my palm. Maybe it held the answers to everything. I just had to uncover its secrets before it was too late. And then I heard it again, her voice, clear and desperate, calling from within the depths of the ominous darkness. Help me! The urgency in her plea was unmistakable. I had to decide, did I continue to run, or did I face whatever hunted me down? My heart raced as I clutched the locket, its warmth pulsing in sync with my growing anxiety. The pathway felt like a labyrinth of shadows, with the echoes of laughter growing more sinister, turning from playful to mocking. I could feel the presence of whatever was chasing me lingering just beyond the flickering light, waiting for an opportunity to strike. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the chaos swirling around. I have to find her, I told myself, repeating the words like a mantra. The locket felt like a connection to the girl I had never met but felt inexplicably drawn toward. The urge to protect her was fierce, stronger than my instinct to flee. I turned back toward the flickering light at the end of the passage. It felt less like a destination and more like a lifeline. Each step forward felt buoyed by determination. The whispering laughter behind me faded, just enough to allow me a moment's clarity. I could still hear the girl's voice piercing through the darkness, a melodious plea that tightened my chest. Help me! The locket warmed again, almost urging me on. I focused on the sound of my feet hitting the cold floor step after step, until I reached the mouth of the room where the shadows danced more prominently, looming and shifting like dark clouds. There, in the open space, stood what felt like an altar. It was surrounded by dolls, all watching in silence while the locket pulsed as if responding to their presence. I glanced around, my heart pounding, and my focus landed on a small shrine-like construction in the center. It consisted of a cracked mirror framed in dark wood, a mirror that felt oddly familiar. I approached it, my heartbeat thudding in my ears, and peered into the reflection. The same girl appeared, her image now blended with the swirling shadows behind me. Her face was a mixture of laughter and sorrow, confusion etched around her bright eyes. Find me, she implored, her voice almost drowned out by a tempest somewhere deep in the atmosphere. Where? I asked, my voice trembling as I reached out to touch the mirror's surface. It felt warm, alive. The moment my fingers made contact, a sharp cold coursed through me, and the world spun. Colors blurred, shadows shifted, and I was thrust backward, falling into a space between here and nowhere. As my vision scrambled and reorganized itself, I found myself in a large, hollow room filled with echoes of children's laughter and the sweetness of distant memories. I saw her standing by an old swing set, her form radiant even against a backdrop of gray. She beckoned me forward, a luminous entity amidst the encroaching gloom. Help me, she echoed again, her young voice echoing with urgency. I took a cautious step toward her, the shadows swirling around me. What do you need? I called out, desperate for clarity. The game, she whispered, her expression shifting to a pleading frown. We must finish it. Finish what? Shadows thickened, forming shapes that loomed closer, pressing against me like a suffocating fog. Before she could respond, a loud crash reverberated through the air. The darkness surged, shadows whipping around me, filled with mocking laughter and cries of encouragement, urging me to play along a game I wasn't sure I wanted to join. Stay back! I yelled, pushing the shadows away with my fear and resolve. But they pressed in harder, menacing a powerful force intent on dragging me into their depths. The girl watched, a flicker of fear in her eyes. You have to make a choice, she whispered, her voice now a whisper carried away by the wind of the impending storm. A decision loomed before me, to embrace the eldritch horror of the game, or to defy it, to shatter the mirror and release both myself and the girl from this ceaseless cycle of fear. With a surge of adrenaline, I dashed for the mirror, heart hammering. Just as I reached it, the laughter twisted into a roar, surrounding me overwhelming, gluttonous. I slammed my palm against the mirror, feeling its warmth flood through me, ringing with her cries. "Help me!" echoed in dizzying repetition. I closed my eyes. "I won't play any more," I shouted, my voice fierce. The laughter faded slowly, and when I opened my eyes I stood before the mirror, no longer lost in shadows. The room felt lighter, and the darkness receded. The girl's face illuminated with relief as shadows pulled back, surrendering their grip. "Thank you," she whispered, her form growing dimmer, retreating back into the mirror's depths as lights twinkled like stars. I stood still for a moment, waiting for something else to happen, my heart heavy with unanswered questions. The laughter lingered, now a distant echo, mixing with soft whispers as my surroundings shifted once again. Then, in the blink of an eye, I found myself back in my living room, the toy chest closed and the locket in my hand. Cold sweat dripped down my back, my pulse racing. I was home, but had anything truly changed? I glanced at the locket, the warmth gone, but a faint whisper echoed through my thoughts. "Find me, I still think about that summer sometimes, lingering around the edges of those memories, wondering if I truly escaped, or if I left something behind. I never went back to that neighborhood. I didn't want to risk encountering the shadows once more, or to see if the girl was still waiting for someone to awaken her truth. But every so often, when silence blankets the dusk, I can still hear her calling. And it leaves me wondering what really happened in that house,